Advocates say that they are devastated that the federal government has accepted just 13 recommendations in full from the Disability Royal Commission. It has also accepted a further 117 in principle. For more on this, Skye Kakoschke-Moore is the Chief Executive of Children and Young People with Disability in Australia. She's also a former senator with the Nick Xenophon team, and she joins us now from Adelaide. Skye, good morning.
Good morning.
There's a bit to unpack here, but first of all, I just wanted to start. What were you hoping to see from the federal government yesterday?
Yeah, what we hoped to see was a really meaningful response from all governments, the Australian governments, states and territories, to what was a really harrowing process throughout the Disability Royal Commission. Over those 4 years, thousands of people really bared their souls and spoke about some of the horrific violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation that they experienced. What yesterday was an opportunity for governments to really show their solidarity with the disability community, and particularly for children and young people with disability, show that they believed in an Australia where an inclusive education is a reality and will be a reality. But unfortunately, that opportunity yesterday passed them by.
Why do you think so few have been acted on so far? And it's important to say that more might be acted on in the near to medium future.
Yeah, it's fair to say that I think everyone was quite taken aback by the sheer small number of recommendations that the government agreed to outright. It's promising that there are 117 that they agreed to in principle, but what that means is further delay. Where it's delayed because important conversations need to happen about the reforms, we would accept that. But something that the disability community talks about quite a lot is the fact that there have been a lot of conversations about violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation, but not an awful lot of action. And so now is the time really for the Australian government, state and territory governments to show that it's time to make a change and that they're no longer going to stand by, and that systems, processes and people continue to exploit people with disability in the way that they have in the past.
One of the recommendations from the Commission that got a lot of attention was the one to end segregated or special schooling by 2051. Schools are a state responsibility, but of course the Commonwealth helps out from time to time in different things. Did you expect a more definitive approach on that yesterday from state and federal government, some sort of commitment to end that?
Yeah, we absolutely did, and we were quite surprised given the amount of evidence that the Royal Commission received and the fact that of the Royal Commissioners, the 3 that lived with disability were the ones that recommended the phase out of segregated education so that we can move to a fully inclusive education system in Australia. The fact that the Australian government merely noted that recommendation really sends sort of shockwaves through the disability community in some ways, because what we had was this opportunity for the government to really stand with children with disability and young people with disability and say, yes, we believe you. We believe that you have the right to attend your local mainstream school with your non-disabled peers and enjoy those better educational, social and behavioural outcomes that research has shown comes with children with disability attending mainstream schools in a really inclusive and supported way.
Yeah, the government will really stress that it's accepted those 117 in principle, saying more's to come. It's also committed nearly $370 million to the initial response to this. Just finally though, Skye, I wanted to ask, big reports, royal commissions can sometimes sit on the shelf for a bit and then be forgotten or overlooked as the political cycle moves on. Is that your fear now, that the process of people bearing their souls through this Royal Commission might not get the payoff that people had hoped for?
Yeah, it's absolutely a risk when you have a huge report like this with 222 recommendations. Some recommendations split in terms of responsibility between the Australian government and state and territory governments. It's entirely possible that a lot of the recommendations will be put in the too hard basket. I think we've already seen that with those recommendations that were noted, and so it's really going to be up to the community to continue to put pressure on governments to act on these reforms and not let them just sit on the shelf and stay there without any changes taking place.